soon.
Yeah, it's
It'll take you like an hour of your life to watch all of the episodes.
Oh,
you
we should have
Yeah,
faded
that's not a
in.
thing.
Too late now.
It's fine.
Well, so here we are in the post show, 84 minutes after the episode ended.
It's the post show, the late night post show.
The late post show, the post late show.
I'm your host.
Post late show.
Welcome to the
Sam as myself.
I guess I could take all that off, can't I?
Yeah, we're out of character right now.
Ooh.
Whoa, that was quack. Look at that. That was quack.
Well, yeah, these are all separate layers. I got it set up, and like it would be very easy for me if like there was say a third person on the couch to change that.
If only.
If only.
There
This
was
couch isn't big
supposed
enough
to
for
be.
two
Well,
people,
actually,
though.
speaking of that, because since I wanted to, I mean, there's not much to discuss about this episode in particular, really.
We didn't do all that much.
Almost
resolved
nothing
the
happened.
story.
Yeah.
We made our wish and then did the thing.
What I was gonna say is, for like alternative, different stuff to try out, I may not be sitting in the GM's chair, so the arrangement could change. It
We
might
could
not
just
be on the
all
couch
three
or
be
whatever.
on the couch.
I think we should all three be in the GM's chair.
I think for like
That's
if we do like let's play videos with video games where we're sitting on the couch playing, I think that's how we should do it.
all three on the couch. Yeah.
I mean, because that way we have like a screen that we're all looking at.
If you're gonna do so, like personally for Let's Plays and stuff, I hate face cams. It drives me crazy when people are like, "Here's this cool game I'm playing. Let me put my face in it."
Yeah.
Even for streamers on like Hearthstone or whatever your favorite collectible card. Hearthstone is not my favorite one, but if Blizzard wants to give me money, it would be.
Hey,
Just
Blizzard
saying.
Cast.
Well, to
Blizzard.
anyone who's playing collectible card games online right now, Faria is rad, and that's what I'm playing right now. They do need some more advertising because that game is new. If they want to give me money, also cool. But I hate when people are like, "Oh, I'm streaming this game. Let me put my face on top of it."
Your face is
I'm not
What
watching.
about when they have a green screen and it's like this cool little insert where it's like they're hovering in front of the game?
I'm just like not watching the game to watch your face. I'm watching it because I want to see the game. But
Also,
if you are gonna do a player cam or a face cam, I think it's important to like get as much in it as possible. Like, I think having 3 people in a face cam is interesting because you have a whole range of reactions. Whereas when it's just one person, it's either like, "Oh, I'm playing the game. Like, why am I watching this guy's face? He's just playing the game." Or they're like hamming it up the whole time. "Whoa! Ooh! I didn't know that was gonna be there."
Well, see, but the thing that's like why face cams are such a big thing. Is
Well,
because
yeah.
people watch it for the people.
Yeah,
playing
It's the
game.
human element.
because PewDiePie reacts.
Yeah. But I think having a couch
do that.
cam is an interesting idea because you get a whole peanut gallery's worth of information.
Well, the alternative is to do something like the setup we've got here. I mean, I guess now that I think about it, you could even do literally the setup and have a large insert up in the corner, which is the subject. Like for here, it's the table, but for there, it would be the game. Then have separate cameras for different people. And then, other stuff like, oh, here's the chat. Here's our little thing saying donate to the Patreon. But I think if you were going to do that route, it would make more sense to be like 4 corners with like game, face, face, face. But if you're going to do something like that, you might as well have one camera with everybody on it.
I like large portion of the screen being the game, and then we put the couch cam somewhere.
I wouldn't want it to be any smaller than what you're seeing up there.
Yeah.
For the stream, but I mean, it's just one of those things where it's like, okay, how complicated does this screen need to be?
Yeah.
You put the game. You
Simpler
put
the
the
better.
face.
I want to see the game
You put-
primarily.
You put the cleavage there. and
Right,
then
right.
It's
All
a
of us have
let's
to pose
play.
as like K-pop models the whole game. Is this K-pop or Nixon? I'm not sure what I'm doing right now.
I'm pretty sure
K-pop Nixon.
this was Nixon, but Nixon was actually a very early influence on
But the other
K-pop.
one?
I'm
Like
sure
that?
there's a K-pop band where like they all
Like
have
that?
Nixon masks on.
I
Yeah.
hope so.
That would be very interesting.
That would be very specific.
Oh.
Well, no, he was the president who did this, and that's like a thing. So we're like, yeah,
Oh,
this is
something
our
like
favorite
that.
president because he's always doing this.
Hey, you never seen those pictures?
K-pop people or
Both.
Yes, I've seen the pictures.
Hashtag
Hashtag-
tPoP Nixon.
Yeah, make that a thing.
Please.
Fans of the show, K-pop Nixon.
Please.
I find K-pop boy bands much more entertaining. Than
Well, they could be boy band with Nixon masks.
Yeah, they could be.
Or just
That'd be
everyone's like they don't need masks. They can just
Be Nixon. Just
Nixon's back.
yeah, Nixon.
All right, so we've been talking for like 5 minutes.
Oh,
now.
about nothing related
Bullshit.
to anything.
So,
as is the way.
I guess actually, I'll say a little bit and then open the floor.
Okay.
Because like the idea that I had for this post show was like, let's talk a little bit about what we would do after the season.
Yes. Give us some direction.
K-pop.
So like
Nixon.
just to start with, I was gonna say like we were saying originally like okay, finish the season, and then try like some experimental stuff, like do one-offs, maybe like mini-series, do like more board game kind of things, maybe like video game let's plays, and just like try some different things. For tabletop, like probably more fantasy craft stuff to explore the system because it's very
Yeah.
robust in what we've done so far.
Yeah, I have a
While
one-off-
keeping to a story has been kind of limited.
Yeah, I got a one-off campaign I want to do.
That was the thing I was going to go to because I knew you'd mentioned that before.
Yeah.
So what's your?
Well, I'm
this
not
idea?
going to tell you about it because that will spoil everything.
Oh, I mean, like just a vague kind
No, I mean I just
hint?
have
like the trailer version.
just an idea of just a short consolidated thing. Let's just say you get a bunch of people, or let's say 2 people specifically, who are like losers and outlaws and terrible thieves. Yeah. And they were sentenced to petrification as punishment for their crime. But they, for some reason, they were in a sheltered area and their statues stayed there for like thousands of years. This kind of Samurai Jack, actually. I think I watched Samurai Jack and then thought, oh, wait a minute, you could do this.
Oh, Samurai Jack's cool.
And then for some reason, people de-petrify them in the future, thinking they're like great heroes. And it's like, you got to save our town from this thing. We put everything on you. And then it's like, well, do we?
Bandits and thieves.
Yeah.
It's pretty good, like
Samurai Jack.
tropey kind of
Very
fantasy
tropey, yeah.
story. Like
I thought you
could
could
dig it.
do one campaign and it'd be silly and funny and, not have to worry about the consequences of your actions.
Not very
But
much
just
anyway.
set in one town and not worry about running around.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely like it got potential for at least one episode, maybe like even 2 or 3 depending
Maybe.
on how we play it.
Spoiler, the bandits find love of money and then they're petrified again. Or not, I have no idea.
Spoilers: the bandits discovered K-pop.
Yeah.
It changes everything.
Spoiler, Nixon was actually the reason he were reanimated and as to be stooges for his crimes.
Yeah, that's like that that one
They play ping pong. for
that one
eternity.
adventure idea on that list of joke ideas. After like that long list of thieves break in to this secure facility and steal this precious thing, or like thieves break into this thing and find out they're all broken, there's nothing to steal, and then like it's like several of those, and it's like thieves break into show business and steal our hearts. Yeah, one of the one from that list that I actually want to figure out how to like make a story of was very simple. Dungeons give chase. I want to figure out how to make that an adventure. That would be cool.
I could see that being more like they're in the dungeon, but a dungeon is a sentient thing that keeps warping and preventing them from leaving.
Well, I mean, like the dungeon. Obviously, the dungeon's got to move. It's
Well,
got to
yeah.
chase them. So that's
Yeah.
the challenge. Is how do you like make that like make sense? So that
Give
it,
the
and also like so
dungeon
it's not
legs.
just like this dumb cheesy thing where it's like you turn around the corner, oh, and there's the dungeon. Like it's got to
I'd be
actually
fine
kind of
with
like
that.
make
Yeah, I think
sense.
it almost
Yeah.
has to play as a dumb cheesy thing. But if you can make a logic out
No,
of
I
it,
think you could make like a sort of like Slender Man kind of like
well, there is
what's
there's
going on. I
in
don't
my-
understand
in
the
my
rules
ever
of this universe kind of horror.
haphazard way of saying, please give me some money. There's a board game that got on Kickstarter. I think it was a Kickstarter project that became a full-fledged board game called The Vast.
Mm.
And the neat thing about it is that everyone,
go.
it's like a dungeon crawl board game,
Mhm.
but everyone plays as a different aspect of the dungeon.
Oh,
So,
I think you talked about
One
this
person
before.
plays as like a knight, and you're like going around trying to slay the dragon and get the gold. Another person plays as a thief, and you're trying to, I think, you want to steal the most loot.
Yeah.
Another person plays as a goblin horde, and you're trying to kill the knight, or
You
the
either you've heard. I'm pretty sure you've
probably
talked to
told you
us about
about
this
this.
before. But it's
Um,
good. It's a cool concept.
because
either
my
way.
criticism is coming up and it'll sound very familiar. So you can be the goblins, and one person can be the dragon, and one person plays as the cave, and your mission as the cave is just to like get very large, to like expand your floor plan basically, and then ultimately collapse in and cave everybody in.
That's cool.
Now I don't think I've heard that because that's a cool like make rocks fall, everyone die. The win
Yeah.
condition.
It's neat. The problem is that
Unbalanced.
not all of those rules. Well, it's not that it's unbalanced. It's just the rule sets don't play nicely with each other. It gets very hard.
That's unbalanced.
Well, no, because it's not that like, oh,
I mean, not in the same. Not in
I'm
like
the
a strict
cave,
sense.
so I always win. It's just that like,
Well, no, I don't mean in the sense of like one side's always
Oh, I
gonna
gotcha.
win. I mean like in a more nuanced way. Like if the things like play off each other weird, they haven't balanced the thing
mean,
so that it makes sense.
I
and
didn't
works.
playtest the game 100 times. I think I've played it twice, so maybe just like my experiences are wonky. But
Yeah, it could be like
what
the
tends
bad
to
run of
happen is
the
that like
trail.
one person gets pretty far ahead. So like, let's say you're the knight and you start winning, and the dragon's goal is to kill the knight. But if the knight's ahead and he starts winning, the dragon's goal becomes increasingly impossible. Which means
Yeah,
that,
any kind of runaway effect's not a good idea.
well, which means that somebody else's goal in the game, whose purpose is to say kill the dragon. Let's assume that's not the knight. I think it is, but let's assume it's not. That like now his goal is easier to achieve, which means that while the knight is supposedly winning the game, if the margin between the knight and the dragon is so high that the dragon becomes useless and can't level up at all, then the person who's needing to kill the dragon doesn't need to actually beat the knight, they just need to beat the dragon, which subsequently beats everyone else. So it just becomes this like
I think I got confused
It-
somewhere
yeah.
in there with
It
the
gets-
logic of it.
it gets really hard to determine like what your strategy is, because you're not really playing against everyone at the same time. You're basically playing against the person who has a somewhat rival objective to you and hoping that they don't snowball too hard. It's weird, and the
Yeah, it's if you're not careful, you can make
and the
runaway.
rule book is not
positive
organized
feedback
very
and
well,
things
so
like
it's a little hard to understand like how all the characters work. But the concept is pretty novel, and
Yeah, like it's one of those things where like you started saying it, and I'm like, that's cool.
yeah,
Until I remember like, I, I I remember it because it's this like cool thing. Like
yeah.
it's
I was
different take
very
on the
excited to play it
the genre.
until I got to like
Until you played it.
the ending phase of the game where we started to figure out who was gonna win, and then
It turns into
it's just like,
Monopoly.
oh, this is not fun anymore. Like there's very little I can do at this phase in the game.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but it's a cool game. People should check it out. My experiences maybe, you know,
Maybe
it's
you're
just
bad at
it's
the
just
game.
not a game
You
for
ever
me,
figure that
or maybe
scrub?
I didn't like it very much. But it's a neat concept, and I give them credit for that at the very least.
I'd
And
like to try that.
And on the note of that that type of game, which would be a cool thing to try, for like other one-off ideas, play as some monsters in a dungeon,
That too.
and
That I'll
some
do.
regular old people come in and trying to take your stuff, and you gotta defend it.
Yeah, maybe not.
That actually is pretty well. I mean, if you no, in the vanilla rules they have like and
Yeah.
uh, ogres and drakes are the two species that have the reviled trait, which means that like there's a social penalty for playing as them.
But they're played
So like yeah.
just
Well,
right out of the box. Yeah.
what I'm saying is like, what is it? It's reviled means you have a -10 disposition modifier for anyone who's not your race. So you're basically treated sort of not like outright monsters. I mean, I've homebrewed like an upgraded version where you are, but it's sort of like this thing where you're treated as like this like weird outsider kind of thing.
Yeah.
People are not gonna treat you well. So it's like, okay, you could have this thing set up where like within what you've already got, you could just make the thing where I'm this ogre, I have this holding, that's this cave with these
Are you
things in it
suggesting
and
that
like
we
some
play-
traps.
Shrek and dragons.
Yes.
You know, I didn't. That's
One
yeah.
person's
There's
an
actually
ogre. One person's
no.
a dragon.
One person is an ogre with
Donkey.
an
donkey.
animal. What is it? Animal partner
Animal
is the name of the
companion,
feat in Fantasy Card.
Donkey.
Animal partner.
Sorry.
I don't. I
Yeah,
hope
companion's got the right.
companion's not
I
like
can't imagine it would be.
proprietary.
Animal companion, those two
but-
words together.
Animal partner.
Anyway.
That's a donkey. I'm pretty sure donkeys are statted in the book
Donkey.
because they're just regular old. But it's a donkey who's been the target of an what is it? Is it uplift animals? Something like that. But given intelligence,
Right.
and it's been made permanent. And then there's a princess. There's actually there's rules that kind of support like the Princess Fiona deal. The ogre species has a species feat, like a subspecies. One of the splinter race feats has a subspecies that's supposed to be like fire oni, or no, they're called fire braves. They're supposed to be like oni from Japanese mythology, and like they're sort of like Western demons, and part of their thing is they can transform, or at least disguise themselves.
Right.
So for Fiona, you could have that. And then Lord Farquaad, well, he's a human with petch blood.
Okay.
He's little.
I would totally.
And also, I did write for the unborn. There's like that species feat with like all these different options for like the materials you're made out of. I wrote a gingerbread man one.
Perfect.
Well, I mean,
Shrekcast.
because it was like this thing.
It's gonna happen.
Oh, we're already like basically the swamp cast.
Swamp
Like,
Cast.
We could do a Shrek parody.
Not parody.
we're
doing It's just Shrek.
But when I was looking over a bunch of stuff to like homebrew,
Shrektacular.
one of the things that stuck out to me was the splinter race feat. That's not really accurate. The species feat for the unborn that lets you customize what you're made out of, your stuff. And I just like was thinking, okay, how many things can I come up with? And gingerbread was one of them for sure. I mean, because part of it was like, well, wait, where's the scarecrow one? Where's the one where I can play as the dude made of straw? And so I had to like come up with that and like several other things, but gingerbread, and then it's funny. It was a little while after the whole idea of like naming the podcast for like the swamp that I was like, you could do Shrek. You could be like this dude from the swamp.
It all comes full circle.
You play as an
Shrek.
ogre with what is it? Pathfinder basics for swamp, and like you're good. I forget actually. Now I'm curious what that one is.
That's all right.
I think it's poison.
Put it in the notes as Shrek one shot.
What do you mean one shot?
Shrek campaign.
Swamp.
Shrek.
You gain a
Shrek,
+2 bonus
forget
for
Pride of
saves against
Pandemonium.
disease and
Yeah.
poison.
Welcome to Pride
That
of
makes
Shrek.
sense.
Yeah, tune in next week for Shrekcast.
We'd probably become enough of a meme to actually get followers off that.
That's actually.
Do you want to be known for that?
I don't think we should do like.
I'm gonna paint myself green for this one.
I don't think we should do like. Try to like set up a whole season or whatever, but like maybe do like some one-offs.
It would write itself.
Well, the
Because
movie's already
the
written,
movies
so
have
yeah,
been
it would write
written.
itself.
Yes.
I feel like DreamWorks wouldn't really.
You know what?
give
Next
a shit,
week,
'cause
guest
there's already
starring Mike
so
Myers.
many-
We'll see you here.
There's already so many like Shrek things out there. I don't think that they would care if we did that.
Let's go a step further. Let's do Shrek the Musical, the campaign.
Man, I have thought about like how if you could like integrate some kind of like musical element to like this kind of tabletop game, and just like the level of complexity that would add.
I mean,
is
you would also
unbelievable.
need people that are far
That
more
are
creative than
musical.
I am.
You would basically you need to have like a party that was composed of several copies of Cyrano de Bergerac. is
Yeah,
what you would need,
basically.
essentially.
Basically.
Uh,
Welcome to Obscure Literary Reference Cast.
Roseanne's not that obscure.
Eh,
I don't read it often.
I mean, I think
it's obscure for most
the
modern
movie.
readers.
I think the movie's less obscure than the play, probably.
That's fair.
Although I don't know, Steve Martin movies probably aren't that.
I don't know. I've tried to
Wait,
reference
no.
Cyrano
Wait a
de
minute. No,
Bergerac.
it's
Maybe
no. Oh, I got mixed. It's Roxanne, isn't it?
Huh?
Because Roseanne is the show.
yeah.
Roxanne is the romantic interest from Cyrano.
Right.
I don't know if you remember. If you even did you read that in high school, Mark?
No, I did not.
It's okay. Don't worry about it. It's a
Basically,
good
it's like he's like the ultimate bard. He's like this like his character establishing scene. He does a sword fight with a dude and composes a poem and recites the poem while he's sword fighting.
Okay.
And
I
the
get
poem is about like this guy he's sword fighting and how he's beating him and how it's like tragic or whatever.
All right, that sounds compelling.
But like
It's-
that's
it's
the
fun.
kind that's what the guy's like, and
Okay.
it's the source of the classic thing where there's this like sort of love triangle. No, it's a love triangle. Like so,
Yeah, it is.
Cyrano likes this woman,
Yeah.
Roxanne, and this other guy likes this woman, and so Cyrano helps this guy to woo this woman, and like feeds him the lines that he
But they're
recites,
wrong.
and then
Well,
like she's
yeah.
like wooed by his lines, but they're not this guy's lines; they're the other guy. So like she's really falling in love with this guy by proxy.
Yeah.
That's where that plot comes from.
You're also
Okay.
you're leaving out the tragedy of Cyrano's giant nose. which-
Well, that's the reason why he's
Exactly, yeah.
insecure and doesn't think he
Yeah.
can. I was thinking like
Jeez,
I guess
man.
probably not. The movie with Steve Martin was not that good, and they did it in the play. Yes, in the play they did it like he's under a balcony and hiding and
Yep.
whispering. But in the movie, like they have like this earpiece that he's like
Yeah.
doing like a walkie-talkie deal with
Well,
him.
yeah. I mean, SpongeBob did that.
That was what
Yeah.
I just realized that the SpongeBob thing was a parrot, I guess a parody, not
Well,
a
probably at
rip-off
this point,
of,
that has just been done.
I think
So many
I think what
dozens
goes
of times.
hand in hand with the old adage Simpsons did it first is
Yeah.
SpongeBob did that second.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, SpongeBob did
If
that.
there's
Or
something that's
after.
been done, SpongeBob has done something referencing it. I'm
Yeah.
almost certain.
Probably. I've only really cared about the first like 3 seasons, so
The good ones.
yeah.
everything after that. who
So
gives
one
a shit?
shots.
So,
Anyway,
yeah,
one
last we were talking about Shrek as a
Shrek?
one shot.
Shrek shot.
But we also talked about some other ideas like play as some hapless town guards while stuff's going
Yep.
down. And
Shopkeepers.
similar to that, I mentioned something about like that battle that happened like in the middle of the season. Like you could do a one off with some characters within that.
Mhm.
Maybe even like an episode where it's like have like a few different scenes. Each scene you follow different parts of the battle or something. I thought of another similar kind of no, not a similar concept to anything we were already discussing. Actually, I don't know. Similar to stuff I had been looking at the time. Because there's like there's this concept in fantasy craft of eras where you can sort of set the game at different technological levels. Like typically fantasy is like medieval world, but then there's also more advanced. You can go into industrial, which isn't that fleshed out in the core book, but you can. Then you can also go like backwards. So before medieval, you have ancient, which is like Rome kind of time period, and before that you have. Oh wait, no, I've skipped reason. So you have medieval. Then after that you have reason, which is Age of Sail and Renaissance. Then you have industrial. Backward from feudal, you have ancient, and then primitive. And primitive is like Stone Age kind of stuff.
Good one.
And I was like looking at this and just like different things for inspiration, and I was like, it'd be cool if we did like a little fantasy one off or two off or whatever in like a sort of Neolithic mythology kind of setting where it's like
We're thinking the same thing.
I want to be Australopithecus.
No.
What
I'm
were
not
you
thinking the
thinking?
same thing. I was thinking SpongeBob did it.
Oh, they did do that.
oh yeah, well,
Anyway, no, go on. That does sound cool.
but I was thinking like a creation myth kind of thing where it's like you're in this village and the world is kind of crappy, like there's nothing really going on, and it's like somebody's heard a legend about fire that someone has elsewhere, and you gotta go quest for fire and bring it back, and then they'll have light so it won't be so dark, and they can like use it to do things that they couldn't, or like it's warm now instead of being cold, or like you can then even build off of that and be like, okay, well, we've gotten fire. Now what else can we go get and try to build off of it? It's like, well, it's dark like all the time, so maybe we can find like a fire for the sky, so it's light sometimes, and it's like, okay, we gotta go quest for the sun, and
That'd
like
be cool.
take the sun up this mountain, and it's gonna spin around the
Like
sky.
playing
Kind of
through
thing.
myths, yeah.
It's like,
I heard there were these guys that invented this wacky round thing. Like rolls around a whole lot. Yeah, dude, it's nuts. You can get places really fast. Stick that on some horses. Light speed.
I don't think they had horses back then either.
I bet horses were.
Well, I
Like,
think
I'm not off the
there
top of my
were
head. I don't know,
horses.
but I think horses were domesticated before the wheel was
Oh, okay.
invented.
there you go then.
I mean, it's useful to have beasts of burden, even if you don't have wheels.
Shows what I know about prehistory.
I
I
mean,
did-
dogs definitely
It's
were.
prehistory. How do we know anything about
Ooh,
it?
good points.
Hmm.
I took prehistory 101 there, so that's been a while.
So that was just
Yeah,
another
anyway.
idea for a one-off. We also
Alright.
did that thing where we generated random characters,
Hmm.
So yeah,
and we could do. I think the thing to do with that is like 3 different stories with like each of us as GM, because it's kind of, I think, would be like a cool experiment for like the proto version of that idea, where like it's a more of a round robin thing,
Mhm.
where we each got these permanent characters who we swap in and out. But try that with these like wacky random ones that we came up with.
All right. Shrek, random characters, prehistory, creation, that kind of stuff.
Your statue idea.
My statue idea. Shrek.
Did we
Shrek
say
2.
Shrek? Yeah.
Shrek 3.
Shrek the
Shrek
musical.
Forever After.
Right.
No, it's Shrek the
Shrek the
third.
third.
Shrek
yeah.
the Third, sorry.
Get it right.
Our Shrek audience is going to.
Oh, it's Skyrocket.
Was there a 5th Shrek? I have no
I
idea.
don't think so.
I hope not.
There was
There was
Puss in
Shrek
Boots
the
movie.
Halls, the Christmas special.
There was another one that was like a Halloween
It's
special.
real.
I should watch that.
There was a Halloween special too.
There's a Halloween
Uh,
special. Where were all
It
these
was
Shrek?
It was Shrek 3D.
What?
Yeah, I don't know why they made it. It was like a spooky. I don't know what the association is with 3D and like spooky, but it
Jump
does look-
scares.
I guess.
Uh,
All right, so
Farquaad came back and was a
Oh,
ghost.
jeez.
Like that's a real
he was
thing.
the best, though.
I know.
I'm glad Farquaad. He was the hero
Yeah, you're right.
that they needed but didn't deserve.
Right.
All right, so we got a lot of Shrek coming up. Stay tuned, Shrek.
I was hoping we might might
Not
stumble upon that a bit later as like a concept, but
Oh, okay.
Shrek,
No,
Shrek
it's
bad.
unavoidable.
We're getting on the Shrek train.
It's
That's
never
going
stopping.
straight.
maybe it'll be like, what was it? Was that one artist who like painted the same door over and over again forever?
I have no idea.
Forever. That's
Maybe it
what
wasn't a door. It might have been like a window or something. But like there was
I
this one
vaguely know what
artist
you're talking
who-
about, but I can't.
It was
think
in Breaking Bad. They mentioned it. But like, what if we did a thing where it's like we do Shrek over and over again, but like
Shrek
different
is,
versions, like
Shrek is the
Shrek,
he's the
the
boulder.
gritty, dark version.
Shrek is the
Shrek,
boulder to
the
our
Care Bears
Sisyphus.
happy-go-lucky version.
That's what it is.
Shrek, the film noir version.
I like that one actually.
Shrek, the revisionist western version.
I'm telling you, he's the boulder to our Sisyphus. We're gonna be rolling this idea uphill for all time.
Get rolling that
Yeah.
Shrek.
Shrek, the alternate universe version where there's like 40 Shreks.
Every
Everyone's
character. is
Oh,
Shrek. So
actually-
when Shrek kicks Shrek off his swamp,
But since it
But he
belongs
falls-
to him.
but then he finds a talking Shrek.
So-
And they
so,
gotta go to
terrible.
I hope nobody watching is going to be super upset if I spoil some of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure.
Whoa.
But there was like a fan story that got like ascended to being some kind of canon. Like it got published officially
Oh.
by like somebody associated with publishing JoJo.
Like a Dojin that became.
It was like a novel,
Oh,
I
okay.
think.
They wrote it and then they
But it was
wrote
like sort of so like later on, like in part 6, there's like this whole thing with like screwing with timelines and like alternate universe creation kind of
Yeah.
thing. And according to this novel, like it sort of like goes off of that idea. Supposedly that process like took many tries, and there's there's like a whole bunch of dumb stuff that happens out of like all these different attempts and things going wrong and whatever. But the thing that like sticks out is Mark. I don't know how much JoJo you know. I know
I
Sam
know-
is familiar with this.
I know
Uh,
JoJo some.
So like at the end of part two,
Yeah, I remember part two.
the main villain Cars
Yeah.
gets like banished
Shot
from
off
Earth,
into
gets shot into space.
Yeah.
So according to this like fan fiction, when Cars got shot off into space, he somehow like leaves the alternate universe because it apparently only affects Earth. But he gets shot off into space, and he's lucky enough that he lands on Mars.
Okay.
And because and the universe gets reset so many times, I don't know if this was how many times it got reset or how many of the times it got reset that Cars got ejected
Oh no.
and landed on Mars. But like one of the parts of the story is about 47 cars on Mars.
Oh my goodness. It's good. It
Like,
writes itself.
There's just 47 of them just hanging out.
47 of the ultimate being
Yeah.
is on Mars.
Yeah.
Just doing whatever they do.
Like I just wanted to like throw that out there. It's like that's the kind of craziness that we could do with Shrek.
We could do that with Shrek.
To be Shrek for 100 years. ShrekForever.com. www.Shrek's Wacky Adventures forever. We're gonna be doing Shrek 1,000 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's that. But the other thing,
Like Shrek isn't what we're parroting. Shrek is just the medium.
Shrek is love, Shrek is life.
Yeah, Shrek is the eyepiece that we view reality through.
Yeah. So I guess that's probably thoroughly exhaustive of our ideas for one-offs and stuff.
Probably enough to start with.
We've also like had ideas that aren't, more fantasy craft. But I want to,
games or just
for-
random one-off.
yeah,
board games or
yeah,
something.
board games, like Arkham. What is it? The card game is what?
Oh,
Yeah,
Horror?
Arkham Horror.
The living card.
The full title is Arkham Horror: The Card Game, or Arkham Horror: The Living Card Game, which is
Do they have an abbreviation for that? What do
Uh,
fans call it?
AHLCG.
That
yeah.
it takes longer to say.
Most people just call it Arkham Horror at this point because all of the other Arkham Horror games, I believe, are no longer being printed.
Mhm.
Um,
So Arkham Horror.
so there is like a non-living card game, Arkham Horror, but expansions have stopped coming out for it, I think.
Forget about it.
So most people just call it, oh, you want to play Arkham Horror.
Mhm.
Right. There's
not-
one.
We assume that you're
else
talking about the
right now.
most modern one. Yeah.
But so like stuff like that. I did want to stay on fantasy craft just a little bit longer.
Which we have two options with for, I believe lots of options if we wanted to do Arkham Horror, because there's the core set, the, what? Oh, you mean talk about Fantasy Craft a little bit
Yeah,
longer? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I thought you meant
No,
talk about
I did-
Fantasy Craft. Like, I want to do more Fantasy Craft games. So,
No, I
Oh,
said.
so-
I meant like right now.
yeah, let's do that
There's
first.
one more
Yeah.
thing while we were still talking about
Yeah,
fantasy
do that.
craft before
Definitely do that first.
doing
We're
the other
talking about
stuff.
Shrek.
My bad.
After doing like the one-offs and all that stuff, I just wanted to compartmentalize. We've got this show that we're doing, Pride of Pandemonium, which we could
What?
pick back up and continue.
Well, yeah.
Um, And then also, I think it would be, instead of like going right back to that, unless like we at that point feel like, yeah, let's pick it back up, try something different for a season.
Yeah.
And do like the thing that we were talking about before, where we have 3 characters, like one for each of us, and we do the thing where we cycle out,
do they like
and
round robin
take
for a
turns.
season?
Yeah, take turns GMing, and like whoever's the GM, their characters doing something else during this adventure, and it's like more like the Samurai Jack kind of thing, where it's very standalone stories.
Mhm.
Just like these characters are in the business of heroism or whatever, and bump into each other and do stuff. And do that for a season and see. I mean, going forward with this story, even just this story, there's things I'm going to change if we come back to it about how I would run it or whatever. But I think trying that different approach would be a good idea. And something that I thought of, or that I've been thinking of and crystallized today, was when we or anybody else doing something like this starts a show, a series, a season, whatever, where they're introducing new characters, it would be a good idea to do like the first few adventures sessions off screen and make them about like building the characters and figuring out what are their motivations, what are their like not in terms of stats, but like personal strengths and weaknesses. How do they relate to each other? Because something that I've been noticing with Pride of Pandemonium has been sort of like a distance between y'all's characters and the story that I've been preparing, where it's sort of like I've got the story and it's like I'm feeding it to you and you're like, okay, let's go do the story. And it's not so much like, well, Fiero has this thing he's out for and he's gonna go do it, and this story is like this means to an end for him.
Yeah.
Or Benkei has this uh, sort of character arc, this thing that like is going on within her that she wants to resolve, and part of the journey of this big quest is going to be that.
Yeah,
there isn't something like that going on really at all.
It's a roller coaster. We're sitting on it and we're experiencing it, but we're not like.
I don't really know how to do that because I always try, and we tried. I haven't gone back and watched the first couple episodes because they're really long, and we had no idea what we were doing. And I honestly don't like watching myself.
As opposed to right now, where we have
nobody does.
Yeah,
master this.
But I remember even cringingly that like we tried. Even a little bit, we tried. It was not a colossal effort, but we tried a little.
I think the problem was that we did that within like the improv of trying to like put on a show with the story, trying to tie characters into it.
And just I think it suffers from, at least in my experience, the thing I always run up against is whatever character motivation I may have written down on paper to start with, runs up against the sort of Fallout, Skyrim, open world sandbox thing where it's like, well, I could do that, but there's all this stuff over here. And wouldn't that stuff over here be a little more interesting?
A little bit more fun. Wouldn't it be fun just to break to the bank?
And I don't know how you make a game that is simultaneously, or like how you play a character. Maybe it's my fault, not whoever's making the game. That I want.
Blame isn't important.
Yeah. I don't know how you either make or play a game where you have such dedication to the craft of the character that you're just like, you know what, I'm sticking to it and here's what it is. Because there's always something that like gets fed to me where I'm like, now I can't do this. Like there's too much interest going on over here, or my idea didn't work, and so now this is like not going to happen.
Go back to the character you always have.
Yeah. So I find in my experiences, I'm like, I make a character and I'm really excited about it, and I'll write down a story, and like I have this thing on paper that, like on session 1, I'm like, yeah, this is my dude, this is how I'm gonna do it. And then what happens is either A, there's something way more enticing on the side, like, oh, you could go to this thing and do this quest and get this item, and like, wouldn't that be cool? And I'm thinking, well, my character wouldn't do that, but I'm not just gonna say like, yeah, no, I don't want the +5 ogre slaying knife. Like, no, I want that, it's cool. Or my character's motive gets quashed by some element of the story where I'm like, oh, my motive is to go stop this guy from doing the thing. Oh, okay, well, you're going to go talk to that guy? Make a bluff check. 2. Okay, I guess I'm not talking to that guy anymore.
Yeah, I think, well, I'll start with where this sort of idea comes from. I forget the name of the video. It was a stream this guy did, I believe. There's a good channel on YouTube in this same vein called Drunkens and Dragons. Go check that guy out. He's whip smart and has a bunch of really good ideas.
He should give us the monies.
He's not like
he's like what we could aspire to be.
Yeah, he's a good person to think of as somebody that we want to shoot for and maybe surpass. If we're like really good and dedicated. But he did a cool thing where he sort of did like a character brainstorming creation session. But the way he did it was he did it in the context of a dungeon where it's like, all right, we're gonna start with like the basics, and the characters to start with are just like basic concepts, race and class and stats, and then like as they go through the dungeon and try out different things, they build on that and say like, okay, what am I feeling with this character? What direction do I want to go with it, based on how I'm playing this character? And I think that that sort of concept is really useful. So before, like, we would introduce characters as characters in a story as opposed to as clumps of stats in a role-playing game,
Mhm.
would be to sort of come up with like a concept for the characters to work off of and put the stats together and then play some adventures to get them up to like a nice meaty level, like level 5, where they've got good abilities and maybe an expert class. And in the episodes where we like sort of go through that process and we like streamline it because we're not doing it for show, we sort of, it wouldn't be like canon and everything that happens and it's like super set in stone. It'd be like an exploratory thing, like, okay, like Sam, you came up with this idea of this assassin character who's like sneaky and shapeshifts and stuff. Okay, try out different things with that and focus not on like the story, because the story that we're developing would be more like vague and stuff that would be weaved into like a backstory later. But focus on like what different things could we do with this character, and then as we go say, okay, what could we maybe change about this concept to adapt it to like the way we're playing these characters, and how can we make that more interesting? And there's also another good video by Lindy Beige, who's a really excellent content creator all around. Uh, I believe the title of this video was uh, "The Next Revolution in Roleplay Games?" question mark, something like that. But it's one of his more recent videos.
Link
And
in the thinger thing.
Yeah, sure, I'll find it and put it down
Link
there.
in the description
Link
below.
in the
Is that what you
description.
meant?
Yeah, that's the one.
I watch more YouTube than you, I guess.
Apparently.
So
We're on YouTube, nobody does that
he
anymore.
was basically saying that he
They
thinks that the
annotate.
next step in role playing games is drama, where sort of you weave together a story.
It's back.
And he talked about a system, I forget what it was called. I think it was called something.
What's
It
that
wasn't
one you
called
really
something
like,
like
Mark?
super catchy.
Fatal?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, that's it.
But it was similar to like Fiasco,
Yeah.
what he described, where sort of the characters are built by everybody, and it's sort of like people come up with ideas for all the different characters and how they relate to each other. So for a player, it's not really up to them everything that the character is and does. They sort of have to work within some things that are out of their control, and it's like it puts constraints on them. It's like, okay, well, how it's like the fun and the challenge is, how do I play this particular thing I've sort of been given? And it's all done so like you have to relate things to each other. So it's like, okay, well, my character is like a failed highwayman, and they were trying to rob this character, and after that failed, and like there was some like silly backstory thing with like getting arrested and hijinks, they came to be sort of tense friends. And like you, as you build the characters, you come up with stuff that relates them to each other and to the world, and then that provides story hooks and all that kind of thing. So like you have to actually, as opposed to like the standard thing where it's like the GM sits down and it's like, I'm gonna craft this beautiful, complex, intricate world, and then the players are like, I've got this like super cool character I'm going to build, and they all do
Yeah,
that
it's a
individually,
disconnect. Yeah.
and then they all put them together, and it's like nothing works, nothing melds,
This is destructive
You have to, like, do
interference,
everything
and they
together.
Just eat each other.
and it would be like for instance, actually, I'll get specific, like for this idea of these sort of heroic characters who all kind of who like hang out a little bit and occasionally cross paths, like the round robin idea. When we come up with the characters, part of that would be like, oh, okay, how do we know each other? And I think we should do this for that when we attempt it. Um, Part of it would also be like, okay, what struggles does this character have? What are their weaknesses? What personal flaws are they going to try to overcome? And then have like a short list of those for the characters, And then when somebody's like making an adventure, look at that and say, okay, how can I make this flaw relevant to the story? How can I give the character a challenge where it's like they're afraid of spiders, so I put a spider in their like that's a very simplistic example, but like that type of thing. And it's like, okay, maybe even include a thing where like there's a mechanical challenge related to it.
A
But
mechanical
like,
spider.
well, I mean, like they have to make
I
a
know.
resolve check to get past it. But like, give them something that they have to overcome. So there's like some kind of an arc of some kind that the characters go through.
Yeah. I mean, I'll make 2 notes and then maybe Mark will have a comment. 2 notes.
Four notes.
Or maybe we just move on to the next thing. Is that
We don't have to resolve this now. I was just wanting
yeah?
to throw this out
So the first one is that I feel that oftentimes, and I might have said this before, the skill check, though an essential part of the D&D legacy of tabletop games, for me has often directly gotten in the way of character.
there. Oh,
So
sure.
I
Yeah.
have, and I mean that in a couple of different ways. One is that what I just described earlier, where it's like, oh, I failed a skill check that was important to me, revealing a core component of my character's personality. So like now I can't do that, and that sucks. The other thing though is that like oftentimes campaigns are made such that like there's a thing that you want to do, like, oh, I made this dungeon with this trap and the answer is to do this, like you need to do a dexterity check or something, um, you need to do a sense motive check or something like that. And so very often what winds up happening to me is I wind up putting most of my skill points in like 1 or 2 stats, and my character becomes good at a thing and is no longer about the character. It's just that like, oh, I've become good at sneaking. My character is now the guy that sneaks through everything. And kind of again like the way it happens in Fallout or Skyrim, where it's like, oh, I'm the small guns guy, so now I just shoot everything because it's what I've made my build. It's the easiest solution to any problem. Um, and you don't really have a narrative around like the guy with the handgun. It's like, nah, I just use the handgun because I have 100 points in small guns and it kills pretty much everything at this point. Um, the other problem um, is that most people are bad actors, myself included. That like I can write down 50 motivations for my character, but at the end of the day, when I'm playing a D&D type game, what usually winds up coming out of your mouth is, I'm going to do X because I wrote Y. So, oh, you found a spider. Well, my character sheet says I'm scared of spiders, so I guess I'm going to run away. And it's like, well, we didn't learn anything about the character, you just wrote that down. So, and I find it's really
that
hard.
I think is a failing on my part as the GM of not setting the tone and drawing everybody into the world.
Well,
It's like a
I mean,
fictional
it
thing.
could be that, but I also do just think that like I'm not like I'm not an actor. I'm a person that can play games, but I act like as good as the next guy, but no better. And so like I think in an ideal situation, if you wrote on your character sheet afraid of spiders, and the GM says a giant spider jumps out from behind the wall and startles the party, your response in character would just be like, oh, and I drop all my stuff, and it's like, oh, why did he do that? I don't understand. But what most people would do is just they'd be like, okay, Sam, what's your turn? You'd be like, oh, I'm scared of spiders. I run. Like I think that's most people's angle for how that situation would play out, and time and again, I think that's how I've seen it played. That's how I've played it, where it's just like either I don't act well enough, or I'm not fast enough on my feet to like get into the character, do the thing, and figure out how I'm going to resolve the combat at the same time. So like while I'm thinking about the combat and what the party needs to do, I'm just like, oh, what does my sheet say about spiders? It says I hate them. Okay, so let me tell you I don't like spiders. Um,
Yeah, I
so
think that's an
yeah,
issue
it's
with
just weird.
juggling the mechanics and the like this personality that the character's supposed to have. Trying to do both those at once is a challenge. Um, just like in general for anybody. Uh, and I do see what you're saying, but I think a part of this is like habit. because like the way we started playing D&D was very much like sort of like the kick in the
Haphazard.
door kind of style, where it's like I do this, you do that. It's like, but I'm doing this high like crazy action stuff. Like it's not really interested in the story or what's going on in the characters' minds. It's like, hey, here's this like virtual world we can mess around in.
Yeah.
But what we're sort of looking for here and aiming for is something that's more elevated. That's like, okay, here are these characters, and it's not just about like we're in this world. What can we do? Which is kind of the mode you'll default to, I think, when you're newer to a system and kind of learning how it all works. But the idea would be, okay, we kind of know how the game works and what we're doing. Now let's tell a story. Let's come up with these interesting characters that we want to come back to, and whose personalities can drive the story. Like,
Yeah.
because it's not like I want to be this badass assassin. I want to be this kooky bard. It's it's like I want to be this guy who's on a mission to redeem this species that I'm a part of, who's uh, seen as like this lurking evil who's trying to subvert everything. I want to like fix this overarching problem, or my people are being subjugated and slaughtered, and I I don't know how to feel about this or how to deal with it necessarily, but I'm gonna like try to find something I can do to make it better. I mean, those are two actually very similar motivations.
Mhm.
Um, but like to have a drive for the character that is going to be the impetus for the story, and then like the interest is the flaws the characters have and how they work within those flaws. And some of that can be mechanical, but it should also be like just they have a personality that
Yeah.
we keep in our heads without having to look at the sheet.
Well, and to tie into my skill checks complaint, and potentially also a segue into a thing that Arkham Horror does, is that a lot of times in D&D and its ilk, and I feel like this is not intended to be the case, there's a struggle between what the character should be doing and what the player needs to do to quote win the game. Which is that a lot of times when you're in a dungeon fighting a monster, there's a win state of killing the monster and going into the next room, and a lose state of your character dying. And neither of those really offers a lot of room for like what the character should be doing. It just, there's no reason for me to act when acting could potentially get me killed.
Right.
Because then the game is over, and also my character I've spent several days working on no longer exists, and that sucks. Whereas in like the Arkham Horror card game, you don't want to lose a scenario because that's associated with bad stuff happening, and like you'll be penalized for it. But you have the freedom to make character-driven choices or to make suboptimal play decisions, because with the exception of the final act of a campaign, the lose state of the game is not dying. There are consequences, and they're not good. They're usually uncomfortable and will set you up for further failure down the line. But
But you can still play.
you can still play the game, and you can even make up a story for like how or why this happened. Um, if in scenario one you come up against a monster that you just didn't draw the right cards to beat, or you pulled unlucky tiles out of the chaos bag, or you just played poorly, you didn't understand what you were doing, and you messed up the objective and whatever, and the monster kills you, the resolution for that conflict is not actually that you died. It's usually something like, you know, the monster knocked you unconscious and fled the scene. So in the next scenario, you shuffle him into the deck as a potential enemy that could come up. You take a weakness and put it in your deck, um, and then you can sort of spin that as a character as like, oh well, I was trying to cover up what was going on here and didn't want people to find out, so I had to divert my attention from the monster. And as an ex-cop, of course, I had to make sure that this didn't get back to me somehow because my friends on the force are still my buddies, and without there being actual character death, it lets you spin things a little bit more.
Mhm.
Well, I think that's an argument for maybe just lowering the stakes and allowing for more non-lethal encounters, or allowing for more resolution to a conflict other than kill the thing or be killed first.
Yeah,
But that's maybe a discussion for another time.
yeah, for sure.
You had some stuff. I know we're running late,
Oh,
but
it
you had
doesn't
some
matter.
stuff about Arkham Horror.
I was just gonna say that we have a lot of options for like how we would want to do a season on that game, or even a couple of episodes,
Right.
because of the current product line that's out. There's the core set, which we could do 3 scenarios and be done with. And it's already been played by lots of people, so we don't have to worry about spoilers or anything. We can just play it and talk about it, and we can play it with the core set cards and not worry about anything. The Dunwich Legacy campaign is about to be finished in a couple of days or weeks when the last pack comes out. So we could also play it as the first full length campaign that they've released, and we can just do the whole story.
How long would you say that would be?
It's
Like,
I think 8 scenarios,
okay.
so it would be 8 probably. In my experience, the game takes 1 to 2 hours to play, but it might be shorter or longer on screen based on how many times we've played it or
I
how
think
much
if
explanation.
you were gonna do something like that, we'd want to like play more to get
Before.
more into the groove, so that
Yeah.
it'd be more consistent.
Usually, what slows the game down, I think it could be played faster, but usually I want to read the flavor text on the cards, and I think if you're doing it on screen, you don't
That would
necessarily have to
also-
do that.
Well, yes, you wouldn't have to, but it
But-
would be cool to be like, I got this card, stick it in front of the camera. Here's what it says.
Yeah, I like to read all the flavor text in the game, and that usually makes things drag on a little bit longer than it needs to.
It
And
would also increase the entertainment value when you're like,
Yeah.
the monster from the bowels of hell.
Yeah, for
is
me, it's
coming
fine.
to eat your face.
but
and,
it does pad the
adds to it.
playtime, so I don't.
Yeah.
It's up to the person. And of course, when you're playing it for the first time, you're still kind of trying to figure out how the rules work, because each scenario has like kind of a twist on the rules. So sometimes you have to like, oh, I flipped this card over and it had a different thing on the other side than I've ever seen before. Like, what does that do? Let me go read the. Oh, okay, that's what it does. Now we can get back. But since I've already played them all, that would hopefully be an uncommon problem. Yeah. And then the third option would be that in December, the new expansion is coming out, The Path to Carcosa, and we could play that as it's released, so that it would be completely fresh to us and completely fresh to whoever's watching.
That's an idea.
The only thing about that is that there would be about a month between episodes because the packs don't come out close to each other. I mean, close relative to what you consider release dates, but you
Right.
wouldn't be able to do like an episode a week.
I think
Which
that's
is good or
actually
bad.
probably not a bad idea, because
Yeah.
you can fill the time with other stuff.
Yeah, and the only downside I'll say to that is that it would not have. It wouldn't have. It would be hard to like, as an introduction to the game, people would not know what was going on, mechanically, or like what cards were from what sets.
Well, given that that's December, I think we could at least
Do
put
some
in,
introduction
like,
before that.
You could do
what
the
is-
core
what's
set as a
like-
teaching game or something.
yeah, because you said the core set's 3 sessions. And
Yeah.
aren't some of the other, I forget, because there's like, so there's like these different pieces and they could fit together different ways. But like, aren't
Yeah.
some of the other ones short too?
The one shots, or the.
Oh, so there are one shots.
There are scenarios that are made to be played completely separate of any story.
Yeah, that was what I wasn't sure about, because
Yeah.
the core set, I remember you said was 3,
The core set is.
and then there were like side ones.
The core set is 3 scenarios made to be played back to back to back.
Right.
And that you will start at the first one and end at the third one, and by the third one, there's a resolution for an entire narrative. And then while they were making those, they did some events where they printed single shot games, and you can either put those in between and say, like, oh, after we investigated the city, we went to Venice and investigated the carnival, and then we came back. Or you can say, all right, we played the core set, I get the game, I want to do something else, let's go hunt a werewolf. It doesn't have to connect to anything.
Okay. Yeah.
Let's go do it.
Because you described those before, and I wasn't sure if it was like one session or if it was three. But
Yeah, no, the one shots are a single game with a self-contained story.
See, now, I think actually before we try to stream or record or whatever for that game, what we should do is finish the session, the narrative that we started
Sure.
with the three of us, just like sometime when we hang out, finish that,
Yeah.
and then from there figure out, do we want to replay this scenario? Do we want to redo it with the one-offs injected as the side quests? Um, I do think that that's something that we should figure out and figure out like a good way to handle that.
Well,
but we should put get more familiar.
That's fine. Anything that lets me play this game more is fine with me because I'm putting money into it readily. So I'm happy to get a return on my investment.
It's fixed.
Yeah.
It's not a super expensive game, but like
Yeah, well, it's different and interesting, and I think it would be good material.
Yep.
But it's also one of those things where because it's different,
I think
only you of us is like very familiar with it.
Even with my familiarity of it, I flub the rules from now and again where it's like, oh, we played this turn wrong because the cool thing about each of the packs coming out and being slightly different is that you get slightly different games. The bad thing about it is because the rules get twisted sometimes, you play them wrong because, oh, I didn't read that card closely enough. It had this keyword on it that I forgot. So now we've been playing the whole thing wrong for 30 minutes. So do we go back and fix it? Or do we just say, we'll do it next time? Like,
yeah.
I had that happen in one of the campaign games where there's a room that says, while another investigator is standing here, you can't move into the room. But the room we needed to get into for the plot wound up being randomly connected to that room. And so the strategy we had was to run into the plot central room, hit the monster, and then run out before it could hit us again. But what happens is when you run out, you're in the room that no one else can enter, and the next person runs in and they can't run out. Because that's what the text, and we forgot. Because when you move your character onto a location, the card sometimes covers the text. And so, just having not been familiar with the scenarios enough,
Just slipped your mind.
Just slipped my mind, and we played like 5 turns without reading the card. And then on like the 6th turn, there were no cards on it, and I looked at it and I said, "Crap!" And my brother was like, "What?" And I was like, "We cheated like so hard for like 5 turns."
So good.
Yeah, I thought this strategy was foolproof. We determined that it didn't matter because of like various things that had come up where it was like, oh, well, even if I had gotten hit twice, I'd probably be okay. And this room could have randomly spawned attached to any other room. So we'll just kind of pretend that we were playing it attached somewhere else. And like, because we don't want to go back and play the game for another hour and a half, like we'll just, we'll do it next time.
Well,
but doing that on screen would be really stupid.
Well, since we're not, whatever that podcast is with Will Wheaton, I don't think we're that concerned with like the fidelity of the rules as much as like, hey, here's an interesting thing, and like if we screw up, that's not the fault of the people who made the games. It's us being dummies, and we can play it for laughs and be like, oh, I should have read that closer.
Yeah, I mean, I would just put a footnote in the episode and be like, oh yeah, like if you play this, realize that this is the actual rule and you can't do this, like.
Well, I don't think we should be like, we're not like experts, really. I wouldn't say. Certainly not like certified in any sense. So I would think it's probably not a good idea to advertise ourselves as being like, we're gonna teach you the right way to play these games, and we're just like, hey, look, here's this. I mean, like these are board games that are meant to be like fun entertainment, not like this is like, we're playing Go or chess with like these very important rules.
And what's especially cool
to be, like have fun with people
about the fact that Arkham Horror is it's more of a thematic card game than a competitive card game, and it's cooperative. Is that when you mess something up like that, the ultimate question is like, well, did we have fun?
Yeah,
because
you don't make someone feel cheated.
You get frustrated because you're like, oh, I played the game wrong. I feel like I cheated. Like it might not have supposed to have been this easy. But if everyone at the table had a good time doing it, it's like, well, I didn't like beat you by cheating, we just kind of like had an easier time than we ought to have had.
Yeah. It's not like oh, he woke up first.
Yeah, he did.
It's not like somebody I won't name trading resource cards and settlers under the table with the guy who's literally just there to make it easier for him to win.
Who was that?
Yeah, who was that?
Who was
I don't
that?
think that was me.
No.
No.
Well,
You
it's
were
not
there.
like it's
Yeah,
not
I
like
was
poker
there.
where like,
I was
oh, I
there.
had an ace up my sleeve and now I win the big pile of money. It's literally just like, oh, if we had played this by the rules, this monster might have hit us 3 more times, and that would have
Yeah.
been much more stressful. But we didn't. We cheated. Oh well. Like, did you have fun? Yeah, I had fun. Oh, okay, cool. Then like, that's why we were playing this anyway.
But it destroyed the sanctity of this tabletop game that we're playing for fun and entertainment.
Yeah,
Welcome
maybe.
to
It's a
Real Nasty
vehicle
Cast.
for
I
socializing.
don't know. I've
with
listened to
our
a couple
friends.
of like developer interviews for the game, and like they asked people, "How do you feel about?" Or no, they asked the creators, like, "How do you feel about people homebrewing rules for this game?" Like, I've seen a lot of fan-made scenarios. I've seen people saying like they thought the game was too easy, so they found ways to make it harder, or they thought it was too hard, so they found ways to make it easier. And the guy they were interviewing was basically just like, "I think this is great. Like, I just want more people to play the game, and the game is really about like sitting down at a table and like telling the story and having a good time. And if making the game easier makes that something that you can do, then I think that's awesome. And if making the game harder makes that like more intense for you and that's more fun, then like I think that's great. If like writing your own scenarios is fun, like that's how I got into game design. So like I totally support that. People should keep making content.
Well, it's
so-
also those are games that are sort of based on the concept of gathering around a campfire and telling spooky stories.
I mean,
so,
it also means that people keep buying your product, which is
Mhm.
Sure.
great. But
Mm,
they seem to think that the sanctity of the rules comes after people having fun with the game, and I really appreciate that.
I mean, who's gonna want to sit down and have no fun just in service of these rules?
Yeah, for
I know.
Executed.
No, I
faithfully.
think
I play with people like that.
some of us seem to be fading pretty fast.
Yeah.
So
Ooh,
It's about that. About
it's
that
about
time,
that
right,
time.
chaps?
Yeah.
about that time.
Righto.
Right.
You guys know that, right?
Oh, it's old, but I know it. Yep.
Oh, don't tell them.
Come on,
You
Mike.
should know this.
Come on.
Was it?
No.
No.
But I am
What's
the
it-
tyrant.
Oh, don't give them the obvious things.
Yeah.
You gotta ramp it up. Like start with. Well, that's appropriate. I'll give you that.
Yeah.
What's it? There was something about Australia being like a running gag. It's been so long since I've seen that.
Yeah, and all the kangaroos down there like, hey, what's up, mate? And they're like in their jackets
Oh,
in
yeah.
the snows or whatever.
All the kangaroos are like WTF. Right?
Yeah, that's it.
What?
It was a really old video
It's a flash animation.
off of like E-bombs.
Oh,
Yeah.
End of the world.
I don't think I've ever seen.
It was like super
Maybe I
hype
did,
when we
I
were in
forgot.
like middle school,
Yeah,
like
probably.
early middle school. Yeah,
Yeah, I
that
might
was-
just not remember that one.
maybe like late elementary school.
Yeah, it starts off with like how all these countries have nukes and they're gonna blow each other up.
Oh, that sounds a little familiar.
Do you have Wellborn in
No.
was it geography?
I did not. That was
Because he
probably where
played.
this stuff
I
came
think
from.
he referenced that or something.
That was
Maybe.
probably why you guys know.
He didn't play it in school. He referenced it, I think, though.
Yeah. I just remember
So-
that it was like the thing. Like it was what memes are today.
It was
It was that.
it was the Citizen Kane of Flash animation.
It might have been.
No, the Citizen Kane of Flash animation was probably oh jeez, I don't even know. That one that Neil Cicierega made that started that whole the animutation trend. What was it?
Brody
Yama
Quest?
Yani Mane Gatabaguchi kind of. It was a thing with like this plane with a face and it had like a sun. I don't remember. It was old.
Oh, whatever.
We were little.
He did a
That
lot of
thing
stuff.
came
I think it was Brody Quest.
Brody Quest was in
Yeah.
Citizen Kane.
That one only sticks
Brody
out for us
Quest.
because we were playing Fear when we played that. It's like you had the lean feature.
Yeah.
Every shooter should have a lean feature.
I think so.
But yeah,
It should be about 80-20. It's the best ratio.
Mhm.
Lean to fat. Or fat to
Oh.
lean.
oh, that
I really
Yeah.
had
too clever by half.
Sorry.
just too good.
Yeah,
Humor game is just
Too strong.
Well,
too strong.
I think now that Mark's awake enough then you can drive home. Hopefully.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah,
I think
welcome
we're
to
in a good place
Sleepcast.
to stop.
I will go home,
Snoozecast is
And
watch
that
we've
Evolve
rambled
World.
on for long enough.
watch that Evon's World video.
You're gonna go home and catch
Oh,
up
by the
on
way,
Steven
E-Bomb's
Universe.
World is trash. It's not. E-Bomb's World just stole a bunch of stuff and put a watermark on it.
Well, do the same thing with YouTube and